I had a man bring a gun into my store today, and I don't sell guns. So as soon as I saw it, I immediately got nervous until it come around the corner and I realized that like an 80-year-old 5'3" man was holding this gun. He walked right up to the counter where I was standing at, and he threw that gun up on the counter. He said, "Mr. Russian, I know you've been looking for one of these guns." As soon as he said it on the counter, I knew what kind of gun it was, because I guess he watches my videos, because I've mentioned it multiple times. The only gun that I'm missing out of my Browning A5 Belgian-made collection is the Sweet 16, and that is exactly what's currently sitting on my counter in my store. I told him, I said, "Buddy, I don't sell guns." He goes, "I understand that, Mr. Russian, but I know you've been looking for this gun, and I'm hoping that you would make a deal with me. You see, Mr. Russian, this was my daddy's gun. He gave it to me, and my grandson has gotten really into hunting, but he doesn't have the proper jackets and base layers and warm clothing and stuff in order to weather the storm out there. And I don't make a whole bunch of money no more. I make just enough for me and my wife to live on. And my grandson doesn't have a dad. His father's, the guy told me, he said his father's running around here somewhere, but as far as having a dad, he ain't no dad to that boy." I said, "Well, how can I help you, sir?" He said, "Well, I'm hoping, because you've been looking for this gun for years and I have one, that maybe we could work out some kind of a deal where I could give you my daddy's gun, and in return I could get some stuff from my grandson to go hunting with." He said, "Would you be open to that?" I said, "Absolutely I am. I've been searching for this gun for 15 years. Absolutely I will." So I set the gun behind the counter, and we went walking around the store, and I got his grandson early season camouflage, late season camouflage, boots, thermals, socks, grunt calls. I ran over to my case and I got one of my favorite Burris scopes out of it. I put it with the pile and everything, and as we were walking back up to the front of the store, I asked him, I said, "Sir, does your grandson need anything else?" And he was so thankful. He said, No, Mr. Rushing, no. This is more than I ever could have imagined. Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, man, look, this is for your grandson. This is fine." And we came back up to the counter, and like I said, I had already set the gun behind the counter in order to like walk around the store with him and whatnot. And he set all of his stuff up on the counter, and I started putting it in bags and stuff for him. And he pulled out a piece of paper out of his pocket, and it was a bill of sale that he already had drawn up. Like, it had his name, the serial number, the model of the gun, who he was selling it to. He already signed it. The only thing left to do was just for me to sign it. And so, I mean, I signed that paper so fast, it was ridiculous. And I left, and I went and made a copy for him and me. And I gave him one back and everything. And I handed him the bags, and I said, "Thank you, sir." He goes, "No, buddy, thank you." And he made it about 2 steps toward the door, and he stopped. And he turned around and looked at me. He said, "Mr. Rushing, would it be okay if I held my daddy's gun one more time?" I said, "Yeah, man." I said, he looked at me and said, "I promise I won't run away," which we kind of both laughed, because this man couldn't run if he wanted to. He's ancient. He set his bags back up on the counter, and I handed him the gun across the counter, and he took it, and he took it with 2 hands just like this right here, and he put his forehead on the forestock. He said, "Dad, you always taught me that family comes first, and my grandson is gonna have one heck of a Christmas this year, all because of you. I love you, Dad, and I'll never forget the memories that we made with this gun, but this is the only way that I know to provide for my grandson." And he leaned up and he kissed the forestock, and he handed it back over the counter to me. I set it down, and he grabbed his bags and he stuck out his hand. I reached out there and I grabbed his hand, and I said, "Thank you again." And he squeezed my hand tighter than I even knew that he could possibly do it. And he said, "No, Mr. Russian, thank you. You're gonna make a young man's Christmas the most special Christmas ever. He's gonna be the happiest boy on the whole planet." And that made me smile. And he went to go walk outside. He walked outside. I watched him going through the parking lot. And he got to his car. He opened up the back door of his car. And he set the bags in the back seat and closed the door. And he went to go open up the driver's door to get into his car. And about the time that it got all the way open, I stopped the door. I wouldn't let it open all the way. And he stopped, and he looked at me. And as soon as he looked at me, my left hand, I handed him I handed him that Sweet 16. He looked at me, he goes, "Mr. Russian, you're not comfortable with the deal no more?" He said, "Hang on one second, I'll get all the stuff out of the car and I'll go put it back exactly where I found it." And I told him, I said, "No, man, I'm more comfortable now than I've ever been." I took at my right hand, I reached in my pocket and I grabbed that bill of sale and I ripped it up. And I told him, I said, "That's your gun, buddy." He said, "Mr. Russian, no, sir. No, that's your gun. I don't have the money to pay for this stuff." I said, "I understand that, and that's okay. But that's your gun. That was your daddy's gun. You did an act that is so rare in this world that you're willing to give up your daddy's gun to make sure that your grandson has a good damn Christmas?" Nah, buddy. And I told him, I said, "Look, I've been blessed in my life way more than what I deserve to be blessed. So I want you to take this gun and take it back to where it belongs, because although that's your gun right now, that's gonna be your grandson's gun one day." He looked at me, he said, "What about all the stuff?" I said, "No, that's also that boy's Christmas presents." That young man don't have any idea how lucky he is, because he has a grandfather who cares more about other people than he cares about himself. And that's like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And the old man's eyes, y'all, his old man's eyes is just like shocked. They're like that big around. He just stares at the ground. And he said, "I guess my daddy was right all them years ago." And I said, "Right about what, sir?" He looked up at me, he said, "One act of kindness will inspire another." And my heart sank at that time, because that's the exact words that's the exact words that my daddy used to tell me. And just for a minute, I felt him. He was there with me. He was there with me in that moment. He's passed on now, but he still shows up from time to time. I looked at that old man and he started tearing up, and I did too. I gave him a hug and I told him, I said, "Merry Christmas, buddy. You deserve to have something nice done for you too." That is, I tell you this story not to gloat or tell you about something that I did nice for somebody. It wasn't that. It was kind of humbling, and I'm sorry I'm rambling, but it's kind of humbling that that man had it figured out. He was willing to give up his prized possession for his grandson, because he knew that that gun was no longer his prized possession. His grandson was. And that's something we could all really take into account. Family. That's our most prized possession. I get my Sweet 16 one day, but that one is where it belongs. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And if I don't see or talk to you before Christmas, have yourself a damn Merry Christmas. Shit.